Frozen lasagna looks like a convenient comfort food. Cheesy layers, savory cease, and a golden crust. But for seniors, these ready-made meals can hide serious risks. From excessive sodium and trans fats to recalls for bacterial contamination, the danger is invisible. Today, we're revealing 9 frozen lasagnas to avoid at all costs, and 2 that are genuinely safe for older adults. Coming in at number 9, we've got Stouffer's family-sized lasagna. You know the scene. The box promises home style, and the picture on the front looks like a family dinner. You pull one of Stouffer's family trays from the freezer because it's familiar, it's simple, and you want something that heats and fills. That's the exact moment to stop and read the panel, because the nutritional math and recent safety headlines make this a high-risk grab for seniors. A single serving of Stouffer's meat lasagna clocks in at roughly 830 to 910 milligrams of sodium per cup, depending on the exact product and retailer labeling. In practical terms, one standard helping can represent 30 to 40% of a 2,300 milligrams daily sodium budget and up to 50 to 60% of a 1,500 milligram target recommended for many older adults with hypertension. That matters because doctors often tell heart and kidney patients to keep daily sodium low. One comfort meal can blow much of a day's allowance in a single sitting. Now, layer in safety history. In March 2025, Nestle announced a voluntary recall affecting several lean cuisine and Stouffer's frozen meals after consumer reports of possible foreign wood-like material and at least one choking incident tied to a party-sized Stouffer's lasagna production run. That recall is limited in scope to certain lots, but it is a stark reminder that even major brands can have supply chain or packaging failures that let dangerous foreign material into a finished tray. For seniors who may have slower swallowing reflexes or dental work, a hard piece of debris in a lasagna bite can be more than a nuisance. It's a real hazard. Beyond recalls, consider formulation. Stouffer's and similar family-size frozen lasagnas use formulations to maintain texture after freezing and reheating. Added phosphates, emulsifiers, and moisture-holding agents. Those ingredients are common in processed frozen entrees because they keep the cheese creamy and the noodle from turning into glue after a microwave. The problem for seniors is twofold. 1. Those additives can hide behind broad terms like modified food starch or natural flavors on ingredient lists, which makes it harder for a caregiver to parse what they're feeding a loved one. And 2, highly processed formulations tend to pack more sodium and sometimes small amounts of saturated fat or trans-like fats to preserve mouthfeel. That cocktail can push blood pressure and strain kidneys when eaten more than occasionally. Nutrition labels show small amounts of trans fat and elevated sodium in many family-size frozen trays. Texture and cooking consistency matter too. Family-size trays are designed for convenience and volume. They fit a kitchen oven and feed several people. That scaling changes the heat profile. Edges and corners can overcook while the center stays cold or underheated. When older adults rely on microwave instructions that don't fully heat the center, they risk eating undercooked pasta and sauce that hasn't reached safe internal temperature, which can allow bacteria to survive or multiply if the product was mishandled upstream. That's more than a quality complaint. That's a food safety concern for anyone whose immune system is fragile. The March 2025 recall underlines the point. Large-scale production runs can ship millions of units before a problem is isolated. Do you still buy big frozen trays for convenience? Or do you split them into smaller portions and freeze what you won't use? Tell us your trick for keeping sodium in check. Stouffer's looks like comfort and convenience, but between the high sodium per serving, the processing additives that hide on ingredient lines, and a recent recall that included a large Stouffer's tray, this is a lasagna to treat like a medicine. Read the label and ration the portion. Coming in at number 8, we've got Lean Cuisine Lasagna. Lean Cuisine built its brand on the idea that lighty and convenient can coexist. Smaller calories, portion control, a frozen meal you feel okay about. That marketing works because the boxes are often honest about calories. What they hide less clearly is how calorie count alone doesn't protect seniors from sodium, preservatives, or repeated exposures that change medication effectiveness. Lean Cuisine Lasagna is a textbook example. First, the label numbers. Many lean cuisine lasagna offerings show around 300 to 610 milligrams of sodium per single small tray, with the comfort cravings or meat lasagna variants trending toward the higher end when manufacturers boost flavor to please taste tests. That means even a single diet tray can supply 20 to 40% of a daily sodium cap for healthy adults, and even more for someone on a 1,500 milligram target. The paradox is simple. Smaller calories don't equal lower sodium. Second, the brand's legal and quality history matters. Nestle, Lean Cuisine's parent, has faced class action lawsuits over no preservatives claims in the past because some ingredient lists included citric acid and other preservatives that contradict marketing. That's not nefarious on its face. Citric acid is widely used and recognized as safe, but it shows a pattern where marketing promises and the fine print don't always match. Consumers who pick Lean Cuisine for clean labels may be surprised to find ingredient lists that include modified starches, stabilizers, or acidity regulators designed to preserve texture and shelf life. For seniors who prefer minimal additives or who are sensitive to certain preservatives, that gap is important. And third, the recall angle. In March 2025, Nestle voluntarily recalled a small set of Lean Cuisine and Stouffer's frozen meals because of possible foreign wood-like material found in certain lots. That recall directly affected a Lean Cuisine item list and shows how large frozen meal supply chains can produce isolated but dangerous failures. For a caregiver feeding a senior, choking hazards from foreign debris are more than an annoyance. They can be life-threatening. Why labeling inconsistency matters practically, companies sometimes label products light or no preservatives while using ingredients that function as preservatives or texture stabilizers. A senior on a restricted diet, whether for sodium, renal disease, or medication interactions, needs an ingredient list that matches the claim. If the product says no preservatives, but contains citric acid, used as both a preservative and flavoring, that mismatch can erode trust and complicate clinical nutrition planning. There are documented lawsuits and consumer complaints that highlight this exact issue with Lean Cuisine. Would you trust a diet label for a family member's dinner? Or do you always double-check the ingredient list and sodium? Share your war stories. Lean Cuisine sells the idea of a lighter meal and sometimes delivers on calories, but that doesn't make it safe for a senior on sodium limits or medication. The marketing can be misleading. The label is the boss. Next, a bargain brand tray that's cheap for a reason. Landing at number 7, we've got Michelina's frozen lasagna. If you've ever scanned the frozen aisle looking for the least expensive comfort fix, Michelina's probably popped into your cart. The price is small and the microwave time is smaller. That convenience-driven model is useful for tight budgets, but it also increases exposure to a set of quality control risks that matter for seniors. Let's start with food safety history. In recent years, a number of Michelina's frozen pasta meals were pulled from certain stores over possible Listeria monocytogenes contamination concerns or related processing alerts, and retailers have removed specific lots when suppliers issued voluntary withdrawals. Public removal notices and retail advisories have named Michelina's among other frozen pasta meal brands in regional recalls and store removals. Listeria is especially dangerous for older adults. It can cause severe infections, bloodstream invasion, and complications that require hospitalization. That's not theoretical. Regulatory pages and retailer recalls document these exact removal events. Then there's the undercooking problem. Consumer reports and review posts going back years show repeated complaints that Michelina's microwave lasagna can come out with gummy, undercooked pasta in the center, even when following package directions. Undercooked pasta isn't just a texture fail, it indicates the tray's heat profile is uneven. That leaves the center cooler for longer and can allow surviving microbes more time to thrive if the product was mishandled during production or distribution. For seniors whose immune responses are weaker, that uneven heating matters. A microwave that heats the edges while leaving the middle underdone is a risk factor you can control with careful reheating, longer heat time, covering, and letting it stand. But not everyone does that consistently. Here are some practical guidances. Avoid making Michelina's a daily or weekly meal for seniors. If a caregiver uses it occasionally for budget reasons, reheat thoroughly in a conventional oven if possible. It heats more evenly than microwave. Check the lot code and best by date at purchase, and inspect the tray after heating. No off odors, no odd texture, and make sure the center is hot. If a family member shows fever, severe GI symptoms, or flu-like signs after eating a prepared pasta meal, save the package and seek medical care quickly. Listeria can present slowly and severely. Would you buy cheap frozen trays to save money if it meant you might have to reheat them carefully every time? Or is that still the smarter budget choice? Michelina's is cheap and easy. That's the draw. For seniors, cheap can mean a higher chance of production gaps, undercooking, or contamination events removed from retailer shelves. Treat this one like a short-term solution, not a staple. Coming in at number 6, we've got Amy's Organic Lasagna, and why organic doesn't automatically mean safe for seniors. Amy's is a brand people reach for when they want a cleaner ingredient list. Organic pasta, recognizable vegetable pieces, and a label that promises fewer artificial additives. For many shoppers, that's enough to trust it for a parent or grandparent. But if you buy Amy's Lasagna solely because it says organic, stop and read the label. The practical numbers matter. Amy's standard frozen vegetable lasagna lists about 670 milligrams sodium per serving, roughly 29 to 30% of a 2,300 milligrams daily cap. And the gluten-free/dairy-free variants can push up to approximately 790 milligrams sodium in some versions. That's not tiny. For someone on a 1,500 milligram sodium target, one Amy's tray can be nearly half a day's allowance. Sodium is only part of the story. Amy's has a documented recall history tied to a single, important ingredient: frozen organic spinach. In 2015, Amy's voluntarily recalled more than 73,000 cases of products containing spinach after a supplier warned of possible listeria in the ingredient. That recall included lasagnas and other frozen items that use the same spinach lots. The upshot: even an organic supply chain can bring contamination into a finished frozen meal. And once a problem exists upstream, it can hit dozens of finished SKUs quickly. For seniors, who are more vulnerable to foodborne pathogens like listeria, that upstream supplier risk is not academic. Then there's labeling versus reality. Amy's promotes transparency, and many of its products have short, simple ingredient lists. But organic can sometimes lull families into complacency. In practice, Amy's uses salt and starches to hold texture after freezing, and some varieties, especially family-sized trays, have higher sodium than you'd expect from the marketing. If you rely on organic imagery rather than checking the nutrition panel, you can unknowingly feed someone a high-sodium meal repeatedly. Nutrition-savvy caregivers should treat Amy's like any processed product. Read the back, check sodium, and choose the lower sodium or family-size options with measured portions. Do you trust organic frozen meals more than conventional ones? Or do you always check the sodium anyway? Share which Amy's flavor surprised you. Amy's can be a cleaner alternative to heavily processed frozen entrees, but organic is not a safety shield. For seniors, a single Amy's lasagna can pack a clinically meaningful sodium load and, because of past supplier-linked recalls, demands the same scrutiny you'd apply to any frozen prepared meal. Arriving at number 5, we've got Banquet Lasagna, the cheap and familiar option that hides real risks for older adults. Banquet has been a freezer aisle mainstay for decades. Low price, quick oven or microwave prep, and a family-oriented ad package that makes it feel safe. The reality in the nutrition column is harsher. Typical Banquet frozen lasagna meals list sodium values around 620 to 620 plus milligrams per single serving, depending on the product and retailer, which is a material hit for anyone on a sodium restriction. A single Banquet tray plus a salty side or a roll can easily push a single meal into the 800 to 1,000 milligram sodium range, half a day's allowance for a 1,500 milligram target. Banquet's production model is built for low cost and mass volume. That works for price but squeezes margins for redundant plant testing and slower recall response. Lower price often means companies rely on functional additives, modified starches, emulsifiers, texturizers, to keep texture after freezing and reheating. Those ingredients are not necessarily unsafe, but they do mean a processed profile that leans on sodium and stabilizers to hold up in a microwave. For seniors who take multiple medications, these additives and the sodium level make Banquet a poor daily choice. Cooking consistency is another problem. Banquet trays are engineered to heat quickly in a microwave. The edges will get hot long before the center. That creates two dangers for seniors who may follow package times without verifying temperature: underheated centers, possible bacterial survival, and overheated edges, which can burn mouths or lead to unpalatable texture that reduces food intake. For older teeth and sensitive palates, inconsistent texture can mean food gets rejected, then replaced with less nutritious alternatives, a downstream health problem. There's also a supply and inspection angle to watch. Banquet's parent companies have faced plant-level audits and class action claims in the past for labeling or ingredient disputes, and that scale means a single processing lapse can distribute millions of units quickly. When that happens, retailers issue recalls or voluntary withdrawals, but not always fast enough for the most vulnerable shoppers. For seniors on sodium or fluid-restricted diets, the practical rule is Treat banquet trays as occasional convenience items only. Plan fresh, low-sodium sides and measure portions. Have you ever swapped a banquet tray for a quick homemade single-serve lasagna? What's your go-to 15-minute swap? Tell us below. Banquet delivers cheap convenience, but for seniors, that low price often comes with repeated sodium hits, texture problems, and the higher likelihood of a plant-level slip reaching the freezer aisle. Treat it like a fast fix, not a staple. Transitioning to number 4, we've got Chef Boyardee Lasagna. Nostalgia on a box, problems on the plate. Chef Boyardee sits in many pantries because of familiarity and kid-friendly branding. The brand's canned pastas and frozen entrees feel like comfort, but national-level legal actions and recalls show this trust has blind spots. In late 2023, a proposed class action suit alleged certain Chef Boyardee products were falsely marketed as containing no preservatives, pointing to ingredient lists with acidity regulators and other functional additives that act as preservatives. That discrepancy between marketing language and ingredient function is not harmless. Seniors who avoid preservative-like ingredients for medication or allergy reasons can be misled. Historically, Chef Boyardee, Conagra, has issued or been part of recalls for mislabeling and undeclared allergens, and plant-level incidents have led to product removals. Mislabeling and undeclared allergens are especially dangerous for older adults who may be on multiple medications and have unknown sensitivities. There are also documented product actions in the brand's history where batches were pulled for incorrect protein or ingredient inclusion, a sign that large-scale canning lines can misroute product lines when controls slip. For seniors who need ingredient accuracy, those errors matter. Nutrition-wise, Chef Boyardee frozen lasagna and similar boxed items tend to have modest calories but non-trivial sodium and additives. Many of the brand's value-driven lines are engineered for shelf stability and kid-proof taste, which often means higher salt and flavor enhancers. That profile is problematic for seniors who must monitor sodium and who may have altered taste perception. Salty food is tempting, and it's easy to exceed a safe sodium intake across a single day. Practical caregiver rules. Assume Chef Boyardee is a nostalgic convenience, not a low-risk medical meal. If you buy it for an older adult, check labels carefully for undeclared allergens. Avoid no preservatives claims without verifying the ingredient list, and limit frequency. If something smells off or the texture is strange after heating, throw it out. Keep receipts and lot codes so you can respond fast if a recall is announced. What's your guilty pleasure Chef Boyardee memory, and would you still feed it to a parent today? Be honest. Chef Boyardee is comfort on a box, but its history of mislabeling and ingredient disputes means the brand's old-time feel doesn't guarantee safety for seniors. Treat it like a nostalgic treat, not a regular dinner. Reaching at number 3, we've got Trader Joe's frozen lasagna. Popular, well-reviewed, but not free from serious production and sodium concerns. Trader Joe's has a strong fan base for its private label frozen meals, including family-style lasagnas and single-serve trays. The product scores in taste tests, but the nutrition facts and industry headlines matter. Trader Joe's family-style meat lasagna lists sodium around 720 milligrams per cup, 30 to 40% of daily targets, and some product pages show even higher numbers in certain varieties. That's a meaningful sodium hit from a single serving, especially if a senior eats a full plate. Beyond sodium, frozen pasta recalls and supply chain listeria alerts in recent years have touched multiple retailers, including Trader Joe's. In 2025, federal investigations and recalls around pre-cooked pasta suppliers led to removal of prepared pasta meals at several chains after listeria findings at a pasta supplier and related processors. Those events demonstrate how a contaminated ingredient, pre-cooked pasta, can end up in many finished frozen meals across brands. That's the core production warning. A single contaminated ingredient lot can ripple through multiple private label lines and land on your local shelf. For seniors, listeria risk is not theoretical. It causes severe infections and has repeatedly been tied to frozen prepared meals. Another practical problem with Trader Joe's family-style trays is the assumption of even heating. Some customers report hot edges and cool centers when microwaving family-sized trays, and when combined with high sodium, that inconsistent heat profile creates a double risk: potential bacterial survival if underheated, and a high-salt meal if the entire tray is consumed. For seniors, the recommendation is the same. Finish in a conventional oven when possible, check internal temperatures in multiple spots, and portion out servings rather than handing over a whole tray. Trader Joe's fans, would you swap a sodium-heavy favorite for a lower-salt homemade swap, or is convenience king? Tell us what you'd give up. Trader Joe's frozen lasagna tastes like a treat, but a single serving packs a clinical sodium hit, and because frozen pasta supply chains have had listeria-linked recalls, it's not immune to production-level risks. For seniors, that's reason enough to portion, heat carefully, and watch labels. Coming in at number 2, we've got Palermo Villa, Inc. Watch the company-level recalls and foreign material risks. Palermo's is a big name in frozen pizza and frozen food manufacturing. You've probably seen Palermo's, Screamin' Sicilian, Connie's, and other labels under the Palermo Villa umbrella. That brand recognition is exactly why problems at their plants matter. When a production line has an issue, millions of units can move through distribution quickly, and whatever went wrong can show up in a variety of finished products. In December 2024, Palermo Villa issued a voluntary recall for nearly 1,728 Connie's thin crust frozen pizzas because of the possible presence of a foreign plastic contaminant. The recall was posted on the FDA site and covered stores in several states. That kind of foreign material incident is the exact failure mode caregivers need to know about. Choking, cuts, or swallowed fragments are real hazards for older adults. Why the recall matters if you're buying a frozen lasagna under the same company or at a private label made in shared facilities. Many frozen food factories produce multiple SKUs on the same lines or in adjacent areas. A packaging or cleaning failure that lets plastic or wood fragments into a pizza can just as easily affect another frozen product made the same week, including lasagna. If divisional controls aren't tight, that's the practical risk. A problem flagged for one product is a signal you should double-check any other product from the same plant or supplier. In short, Palermo-level brand trust is not a substitute for verifying lot codes and current recall notices before feeding a tray to a senior. Temperature, packaging, and foreign matter. The 2024 Palermo recall was triggered by foreign plastic in a finished product. Foreign object events can originate from broken tooling, failed packaging film, or an errant fragment from a maintenance job. For seniors, a hard foreign piece in a lasagna bite is not just unpleasant. It can crack a tooth, lodge in dental work, or cause choking. If you find a piece of unexplained material in a frozen entree, keep the packaging and lot code, take photos, and report it to the retailer and the manufacturer immediately. Those reports are how agencies identify and expand recalls before more people are harmed. Have you ever found a hard piece in a frozen meal and assumed it was just a manufacturing fluke? Tell us what you did. Did the store refund you, or was it a headache to track down the lot code? Palermo's recall for plastic and pizza proves a simple point. A familiar logo doesn't remove real manufacturing risk. If a Palermo facility makes your frozen lasagna, treat it like any other processed tray. Check the lot, inspect the finished dish, and don't assume brand name equals safe for seniors. Coming in at number 1, we've got Hunt's Why the Sauce Plus Sodium Math Makes This a Top Hazard. Hunt's is best known for canned tomatoes and sauces, but those products are the backbone of many frozen and prepared lasagna recipes, and the nutrition math is what kills convenience. Look at Hunt's official lasagna recipes and widely used recipe pages derived from Hunt's products. The working sodium numbers for a lasagna made with Hunt's-style sauce commonly land between approximately 850 milligrams and 970 plus milligrams sodium per serving, depending on the recipe and portion size. That's not a small hit. It's often a clinically relevant spike for anyone on a 1,500 milligrams per day sodium plan. If a frozen lasagna uses Hunt's sauce or heavily salted canned tomato ingredients, expect one plate to take up a very large slice of a day's sodium budget. Why that sodium matters for seniors. High meal sodium causes fluid retention, raises blood pressure, and can blunt the effect of diuretics and ACE inhibitors. For seniors with heart failure, chronic kidney disease, or hypertension, repeated high-sodium meals are more than a meal choice. They change medication response and increase the risk of edema and ER visits. In practice, a single Hunt's heavy slice of lasagna plus bread or soup can push a senior well past the sodium they should consume all day. That's the clinical problem on repeat purchase cycles. Cooking consistency and temperature. Many frozen lasagnas are designed for quick reheating. Microwaves produce hot edges and cool centers. Ovens heat more evenly but are slower. If a frozen Hunt's-based lasagna isn't brought to a safe internal temperature, 165 degrees Fahrenheit, 74 degrees Celsius, in the center, bacteria introduced upstream or allowed to persist during improper storage can survive. That matters much more for seniors with weakened immune systems. When manufacturers recall or withdraw products because of processing or foreign material issues, it's often a plant-level control that affected multiple SKUs, and tomatoes/sauces are ubiquitous ingredients. Would you trade convenience, a frozen tray, for time to bake a small homemade single-serve lasagna from low-salt canned tomatoes? What's your 20-minute swap? Hunt-style sauces are cheap and reliable, and they explain why some frozen lasagnas read like a sodium bomb on the label. For seniors, that sodium math is not a small detail. Now, let's uncover the two actually worth it picks. The first safe pick is Evol, lasagna and meat sauce, a practical, cleaner frozen lasagna with fewer surprise additives. Why it made the safe list? Evol's single-serve lasagna and butternut squash lasagna lines are widely available. Use recognizable ingredient lists: tomatoes, cheeses, pasta, vegetables, beef raised without antibiotics in meat versions, and the company prominently markets a no artificial colors / no nonsense ingredient stance. In practice, that means fewer mystery stabilizers and less reliance on ultra-high sodium to mask flavor. That's a better starting point when you're feeding someone on medication. Evol's cooked, single-serve lasagna typically lists around 430 calories and roughly 570 milligrams sodium per package. Labels vary by flavor, which is lower than many family-sized trays and competitive with other single-serve premium frozen lasagnas. The lower sodium per serving helps keep a single meal from blowing a day's sodium budget, while the portion size and protein content, about 20 to 21 grams, deliver a filling, nutrient-dense choice for seniors. Evol fans? Olive oil drain or eat the sauce? How do you stretch a single package into two safe senior portions? Evol trades a little richer flavor for clearer ingredients and a smaller sodium hit than many family-sized trays, a useful choice when you want convenience without a medication-shaking shock. The second safe pick is Amy's Kitchen, light in sodium vegetable lasagna, labeled, tested, and built for lower salt. Why it made the safe list? Amy's has a long record of specifying organic ingredients and offering light in sodium frozen entrees. The Amy's light in sodium vegetable lasagna is a real product aimed at consumers who want organic pasta and vegetables with a lower sodium burden than standard frozen lasagna. Available nutrition entries place the sodium for the light in sodium tray around approximately 340 milligrams per single 9.5-ounce entree. Other Amy's lasagna varieties are higher, which is why the light in sodium label is important. That is an excellent number for caregivers. 340 milligrams per serving leaves room in a senior's day for a low-salt breakfast and small, monitored dinner without risking medication interaction from excessive salt. Why Amy's matters beyond sodium? Amy's uses organic pasta and vegetables and keeps ingredient lists short. That reduces the chance of hidden additives, surprising preservatives, or unexpected allergens. Amy's has also shown it will issue supplier-level recalls when problems occur, which you want to see. It's evidence of active safety monitoring. For a senior who needs clean labels and low sodium, Amy's light in sodium option is a practical, evidence-backed pick. If you had to pick one frozen lasagna to feed a parent on a low-salt plan, would you choose Amy's Light or split an Evol? Which would you buy this week? Amy's Light in Sodium gives you organic ingredients, a smaller sodium hit, and a reliable label. A practical, safer frozen lasagna for older adults when portioned and rotated properly. Not all frozen lasagnas are created equal. Some can quietly harm your health. Subscribe now, and I'll show you which brands are truly safe, fresh, and worth eating every week.